on this earth to be a man, to be a human being, to be respected as a human being, to be given the rights of a human being in this society, on this earth, in this day, which we intend to bring into existence by any means necessary.
Yes, sir. Here we go. Here we go. And we are here for another installment of our Revolutionary Fourth Sundays, an hour of power that's be going on all year long for the year that is the centennial of Malcolm X. And today is like all of our Revolutionary Sundays are. There's a powerful one, a loaded one that includes a very special guest who's no stranger to our audience, right? And certainly no stranger to struggle. And the thing, let me just say this real quick, because I think it's important to appreciate, because during a time like this, there are several kinds of scholarship that will pop up, right? There's scholarship that is organic to our struggle, and then there is commercial scholarship that basically dances to the music of institutional control and institutional favor and permission, right? Akinyele Umoja is a son of struggle, organically involved with his scholarship to the Black liberation struggle, right? And I don't know if I can do him nearly the justice that he deserves in his long walk, on both of those streams, organizing and scholarship. Ain't too many of us can handle that. Wear both of those hats and keep your head on straight, right? But he has done that exceptionally well. To this year is the centennial, not just of Malcolm, centennial of Frantz Fanon, centennial of Patrice Lumumba, the centennial of Medgar Evers in that bloody mud of Mississippi, right? And the centennial of this brave man that we're going to spotlight today, the late Robert Williams, and his queen, Mabel Williams, because the memoir is the memoirs of Robert and Mabel Williams, right? So we're really excited about this hour and this feature and what's going on. And towards the end of the conversation, I'm going to jump in and give you an emergency update on Mumia Abu Jamal for our political prisoner spotlight. Some of you have seen the urgent call out already that Mumia is having some dangerous challenges with his eyesight that is progressing in a way that can ultimately leave him blind if it's not addressed soon. And so we are putting pressure on the state of Pennsylvania to give our beloved voices the medical care he deserves and needs so we can save his eyesight. Of course, his doctor and people say the best treatment that Mumia can get medically is his freedom. So we continue to agitate and organize and mobilize for the freedom of our political prisoners, all of them. So we'll come back to that at some point just to inject that into the conversation. By way of background, for those of you popping in on us for the first time, welcome to the YouTube page of the Malcolm X Commemoration Committee. Welcome to the work of the Malcolm X Commemoration Committee. We are in year 32, started by Barbara Herman Ferguson, one of Malcolm's comrades. Herman was with the OAU and the Education Committee, and was there on that right up until that fateful day on February 21st, 1965. But unlike many others who were around in the organization at the time, Herman too was a genuine revolutionary and did some revolutionary things, picking up Malcolm's work, Malcolm's mantle in his own way, developing a black gun club in the state of New York. Y'all listen to me. The Jamaica Rifle and Pistol Association. I'm not making this up, right? Trained a lot of folks on that in that range, right? In fact, some of the young men and women from that training and range would go on to form the bold New York chapter of the Black Panther Party, right? Of course, when you do things like that, you're going to get the attention of the federal government, and it made Herman a very serious COINTELPRO target, and he ultimately had to opt for exile when he was framed on a bogus charge to conspire to kill two civil rights leaders, Whitney Young and Roy Wilkins. Madness is like all get out, but madness that would have taken time out of his life. He sojourned to Guyana, helped that new nation develop both its military and educational infrastructure, would ultimately retire a full-fledged colonel in their military, and came back in 1989 to clear his name. And of course, he was summarily put in the prison system in New York State until somehow on appeal. And I want to shout out a founding member who is now an ancestor, the late Joan Gibbs, who was his lawyer at the time, found himself before a judicial legend from Harlem by the name of Judge Bruce Wright. And Bruce Wright did what Bruce Wright was known to do when hypocrisy would enter his courtroom. He cut Baba Herman loose. And of course, at that time, this is the early 1990s, there was a lot of commercial energy in the air around Malcolm. The emergence of the film that Spike Lee would ultimately do. In fact, some of us were part of a collective that literally stepped to Spike and attempt to hold him accountable for what he should and should not do with that film. And I think history has vindicated us for what ultimately came out of that, because preliminarily we knew something else was on the table, right? But Herman brought some of his comrades together and some, young Malcolmites like my crazy behind. I was leading a public education program, political education program in Newark, New York, that his wife, Yailua Ferguson, really appreciated, and they all brought me into that process. Yuri Kuchiyama, Gene Reynolds, Butch Gladstone, Earl Grant, somebody who popped up in the lawsuit around Malcolm's family challenging the U.S. government in their role in the assassination. Martial art legend Walter Bowe was one of the Statue of Liberty Four, right? All were a part of the Malcolm X commemoration committee with us. And also, I have to add Mr. Les Payne and his daughter Tamara Payne. Tamara rescued her father's book effort recently, and we had her in Newark for the beginning of a book signing series that we're doing as a beginning of our entree into the greater Newark area. They were both with us in those early days of the Malcolm X Commemoration Committee as Les was trying to, gather more information on his own, interviews on his own, and all he could get from the context that we had in the organization. Those were the beginning days of the organization. The organization did many a thing, best known primarily for two: the co-sponsoring and expansion of the annual pilgrimage to the gravesite, May 19th every year, rain or shine, since 1966. All right. Inspired and conceptualized by Malcolm's big sister Ella Little Collins, and managed and overseen faithfully by the great Baba James Small, right? And also, of course, for 25 straight years until the intervention of the COVID pandemic, we did our annual Freedom Fighters Dinner Tribute. We also did Malcolm X in the Classroom, Malcolm X Essay Contest, other things like that to educate on the grassroots level, Malcolm's legacy and defending Malcolm's legacy. And we'll be doing more of those things as we move into our immediate future. Malcolm X Human Rights Film Festival, we're trying to put on the table. We're working on some partners and some spaces for that. We will be continuing this book series. In fact, our next gathering will be at a place in Newark called Express Newark. There's a young brother from across the Big Pond by the name of Kahindi Andrews, who's got a new book coming out called Nobody Can Give You Your Freedom. And Kahindi is a son or a grandson of the Windward generation of Caribbean folks who went to England, and how they stand up for themselves is that they leaned on Garvey and they leaned on Malcolm, because Malcolm, one of the many cities that Malcolm set on fire, in addition to those cities here in the United States, was London, England. And London, England has a very diverse Black population that he set on fire in those last 2 years of his life. And they lean on Malcolm heavily to anchor and root their radical tradition. So this young brother is going to be with us in Newark on September 10th. We're trying to find a venue for him in New York for September 9th. If we make that happen, stay tuned. Follow us on Facebook. Pop in your email in the chat if you want. right? So we can add you to our connects. We got to figure out the QR code thing moving forward. Some of us are still in the 20th century being fully transparent. So with that background, I want to thank in the background Rafisa Shahabuddin, our teacher of the year at Shabazz High School, who's helps me on the this side and on the Nook side of the work. Right, I'm going to do a brief libation statement for the ancestors of the Malcolm X Commemoration Committee, and we will jump into this conversation with our special guest, Professor Baba Akinyele Umoja. So for the four directions, the north, the south, the east, the west, we say Ibaye, Ashe, Ibaye, Ashe, Ibaye, Ashe, Ashe, Ashe. For the ancestors of the class of 1925, for France Fanon, we say Ibaye, Ashe, Ibaye, Ashe, Ashe. The ancestor that is Patrice Lumumba, who shook up the whole world in the heart of Africa, we say Ibaye, Ashe, Ibaye. Ashe, the bloody mud of Mississippi, survived World War II, only to be slain by the Klan in Mississippi. The great Medgar Evers, we say, Ibaye, Ashe, Ibaye, Ashe. And for this man who told us of the importance of Negroes having guns. Don't forget his epic book way back in the day, Negroes with Guns. It's still in print. I got mine. For Robert F. Williams and his queen, who walked with him all during those challenges and that would only put them in exile for a time, right? But never did they ever abandon their principle and their commitment to our right to defend ourselves, right? For Robert and Mabel Williams, we say, Ibaye, Ashe, Ibaye, Ashe. For the ancestors of the Malcolm X Commemoration Committee, Herman Ferguson, Yuri Kuchiyama, Butch Gladstone, Earl Grant, right? Strong warriors who held a line and dared to walk with Malcolm when few would dare to walk with him. We say, Ibaye, Ashe, Ibaye, Ashe, Ibaye, Ashe. And for the ancestor himself, father of Black Revolution, right? The founder of this important, epic moment in our history, right? And it continues to ground us down through the ages for Imam Omawale. Detroit Red, brother minister, Malcolm X. For Malcolm, we say Ibaye Ashe, Ibaye Ashe, Ibaye Ashe. Leaning on the Orisha who is Ogun, and the mighty machete clearing the path. We're going to lean on Ogun to clear the path and help a new generation get the pieces and fruit and the nuggets of wisdom that'll come from this great scholar in this particular dimension of our legacy, our military history. Because indeed, we're up against a beast who will attack us, has attacked us, has no problems attacking us militarily. We need to get ready and do what we need to do to defend ourselves. So with that, we'll end as we begin for the north, the south, the east, the west. Ibaye, Ashe, Ibaye, Ashe, 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 Ashe. Oh, it is done. Let's go to work. Baba Akinyele, free the land.
Free the land. Baba Zaid, that was a powerful libation, man. Oh, very moved by the ancestors you named in, the class of 1925, as well as the ancestors of this organization that I've always had great respect for. Baba Herman Ferguson, I had a chance to walk with him and be with him and his Queen Ialua Ferguson, and I'm always inspired by Mama Yuri Kochiyama. So I have great respect for these ancestors and for this organization for maintaining the legacy, the memory of Omowale El Haj Malik Shabazz. So it's a great honor to be here this evening.
It's an honor to have you, beloved. It's an honor to have you. We got a lot to unpack, and I want to do you justice, and I want us to have some big fun doing it, of course. I see Charles Brooks, one of our, who was with us for a long time, too, when it was, the other media arm of the organization, got us some good articles. There's some good press work for us. He's down in the DMV now. Right on, Charles. We see you, free land, right? a lot to talk about. I wanted to try and begin to frame this conversation this way. We want to put Robert Williams not just in the tradition of self-defense, but
Mm-hmm.
also these works, including your monumental "We Will Shoot Back,"
Mm-hmm.
right? Uh, in the pantheon of Black radical scholarship, you
Mm-hmm.
know, asking the question, what is the value of this new work coming in, and where do we need to be going in further developing out real scholarship from our own ranks
Mm-hmm.
along on the lines of our military tradition.
Mm-hmm.
I would just say modestly as an organizer that we could stand to do more. What we
Mm-hmm.
have is good from what I see, and these two contributions that we're going to sit on today are huge, right? Uh, but I've got a feeling just listening to how you recount the stories from the elders and how I've gotten my share of stories from the elders and whatnot, that we got some more to do. We got some ways to go because we really need to get this done. And then, last couple years we've lost some incredible warriors. Dr. Gore,
Mm-hmm.
Odinga. Today is
Mm-hmm.
the anniversary of the departure of my big sister and one of my leaders in this work, Safia Asia Bukhari. Right? Some serious, man, some warriors who did some serious throwdown stuff for our
Mm-hmm.
struggle, right? And as much as we have lifted them up in their twilight, we know that there's more from their period and going back further, right? Because our self-defense tradition didn't just start in the 1960s. Everybody likes to think struggle started in the 1960s. No, it didn't.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Um, you know, we need to look at those things and challenge our young scholars who are coming from our ranks to dare to
Mm-hmm.
bite that apple, to dare to
Mm-hmm.
bite that apple and to plant those seeds even further. So that's just a general thing. But
Well, I tell you what, and I should have started with saying free the land and Black August resistance.
yes,
Uh,
sir.
Black August in the spirit of the names you mentioned. Actually I had a dream this week. I don't know if it was a dream or it was just the spirit just talking to me early in the morning. And I'm talking about before I got out of bed. And it was like, I've known Geronimo Jijaga.
Mm.
I've known Batulu Shakur. I've known Nahanda Biadoon. I've met Sada Shakur. I know Sekou Odinga, and several others. And so I felt like, you know, what where did destiny put me in a position to meet these? You mentioned our military tradition.
Yes, sir.
Uh, what put me there to meet these folks and possibly to be somebody who could tell their story. Even Thomas Blood McQuarrie, that was one of the things we were supposed to do before he passed, but we never got enough time in the same space for me to collect some of the information he wanted to share with me to share with the world.
Mhm.
Because he thought about these things, but we never got a chance to sit down and get it.
Mm.
Even Geronimo, there was a book that came out. I won't name it so people won't think I'm throwing shade. But it was a book to discuss Geronimo, and I said, "Gee, I got to get your book." And he was like, "That ain't my story. You need to tell my story." But I didn't think. I thought I had more time with him. You know what I mean?
We all did. Because he was so strong and he came out fit when he came out.
Oh
But you
man,
just
he was
never
in shape.
know.
He was in good shape. And getting back to this book, the Memoirs of Robert and Mabel, how it begins is for me. Begins from me. Is in I believe it's in 2016. Their last surviving son, John Chalmers Williams, who had been through Monroe with him, going to Cuba, going to China, all of that stuff, right? And so he met with myself, two people you quite familiar with, Dr. Muhammad Ahmed, aka Max Stanford. He met with the great John Bracey, and also Clyde Marks from Freedom Archives, one of our longtime solidarity fighter with our people, in support of our people, Puerto Rican independence movement, other international struggles. But he met with us. John at that time was suffering from, I believe, ALS. He was in a wheelchair, paralyzed from the neck down. Wow. And him and his mother had been working previous to that on Robert's memoir. Mm-hmm. But then she had terminal cancer, transition in 2014. And then John wanted to put this in somebody's hands to make sure it got done. And he saw it as part of a campaign, because remember, in 2016, we had already experienced Trayvon Martin and the uprising, the resistance that occurred after that. And then Mike Brown, the resistance. So he wanted to share his parents' legacy with this new emerging generation. So you mentioned armed resistance, armed self-defense. He wanted them to know that's an option. And not only is it an option, but it's legitimate for oppressed people to fight back. That's right. There's nothing wrong with it, because we get the other thing, right? We get the other thing. And so, some people believe it's morally wrong for us to defend our lives, to protect our children, our family members, our elders, our institutions, So when I think about Dylan Roof running up in the church in Charleston, we got to be prepared wherever we are at. And it doesn't have to just be the traditional revolutionaries. Our people have to be prepared to defend ourselves, because there's still people out there who mean harm against us, who are trying to kill us. And so that's what Robert Williams represents. And when you mentioned Barbara Herman and doing the Jamaica Queens piece, Jamaica Queens, was it Rifle and Pistol Club?
Yeah, club. Yeah.
And it not only was a foundational for the Panthers in New York, but for Revolutionary Action Movement in New York, for Republic of New Africa in New York.
All those transitions.
Yeah, he provided that basis for them through that work he was doing at that particular time, coming out after the assassination of Malcolm, right? And so it's a very important part of our tradition, and we do need to write about it. We do need to, as you're doing, having a podcast about it. It needs to be involved in some of our curriculums. If we can't do it in our public schools, can we do it in our independent schools? Can we do it in our community education that we do outside of their system? We got to do it. It's our responsibility to do it. If we don't do it, then it's on us. And so that's what kind of birthed the project. John bringing us together and putting it in our hands and saying, he didn't say I didn't have long. We didn't. In fact, I thought he would have had longer. I think he passed. Let me see. I think that was like in August. He might have died like maybe 4 months later. It wasn't that long after he put it in our hands. In fact, it was a while after that, because his health was so bad. We didn't get it till the following year, to 2017, that we actually got the manuscript and began to work on it.
Let's take us back. Let's take us back to that time, because the Malcolm and Mr. Williams, they converge on the scene, on the historical stage at a pivotal time in each of their lives, and at a pivotal time in our struggle. Like Robert would wind up going to Cuba, right? Mm-hmm. Around the time that he is having his confrontation with the Klan and the NAACP,
Mhm.
right? You see Malcolm coming back from Africa the first time and organizing Harlem to receive Fidel, right?
Mhm.
And it would lead to a whole new expanded relationship of solidarity with our struggle in Cuba. And of course, when Robert goes through his stuff, Malcolm is one of the lone voices on the national stage that would say, "Yeah, we with you, brother. You're absolutely right." And some of us are going to support you to the fullest, right? Let's walk through that time and that moment. What does that look like for young heads who haven't studied that yet?
Man, so you got the Cuban Revolution seizes power from a dictator called Batista. I forgot dude's first name.
Fulgencio Batista.
Yeah, sound nice, but he wasn't nice. He wasn't nice.
Must.
He was a big dictator.
That's
And
right.
Fidel had failed prior to that. They attempted to take power. He was a political prisoner, prisoner of war, we should say,
Yes,
along
sir.
with other comrades. There's a mass movement. He's released. He goes to Mexico and reorganizes a group to take power. I'll mention this brother because we'll talk about him later. Relationship with Robert Williams' daughter, Juan Almeida, was one of the Cubans of African descent who went along with Fidel and came back when they seized power, along with an Argentinian physician by the name of Ernesto Che Guevara.
Yes,
And
sir.
they seized power on January 1st, 1959. So when we celebrate, there's a couple of things on January 1st. Is, of course, Lincoln signs Emancipation Proclamation, which gives us a signal. Hey, we go on that side, we could be out of this condition, right? But you also had a Haitian Revolution, 1804, January 1st. But Cuban Revolution happens, 1959, and it inspires oppressed people. And so one of the first delegations from the United States to go to Cuba included the elder in your community, Zaid, the great Mary Baraka.
Yeah.
At that time, his name Leroy Jones. Folks in New York know the great John Henry Clark, and then a novelist, John Oliver Killings, the political theorist, Harold Cruz. But amongst that group is a young brother out of Monroe, North Carolina, who've been organizing Black people to fight the Klan by the name of Robert F. Williams, Robert Franklin Williams. And Robert Williams is also, we should note, he's a writer. He begins to write about what's happening in Monroe, the civil rights movement, but also global struggles. And so they go to Cuba. And so Robert Williams is an early friend of Cuba. So think about that. Then the following, he goes down, I think the same year that they go down to that trip is the same year that Malcolm sets up for Fidel Castro and his delegation to speak at the, going to speak at the UN, but they set him up at the Hotel Teresa in Harlem,
Yes.
which is a trip to me. I had one of my blessings in life was in 1990. Our comrade and sister Rosemary Mealy organized a delegation of many people to go down to Cuba for this conference. Malcolm X speaks in the 90s. And I
got bumped from that delegation and I'm still cussing them out about that.
Oh man, I just made it in. Somebody else is gonna go, and my comrades in the organization, New African People's Organization, say Akinyele needs to go.
Yeah, y'all got to meet Fidel and everything. I was mad.
Man, Baba Lambe Brown was on there, Kwame Ture,
Yes.
great James Turner,
Oh,
William Sells. William Sells and I were the first two people to present at the conference. And so we got to meet there. Like you said, we met Fidel at the end of the piece. But one funny story is there was a Cuban official who said he had met Malcolm before their delegation arrived. And the Cubans, they was going to say at some highfalutin Hotel, Waldorf Astoria or something, but they were gonna jack him up on the price, saying that they gotta raise the price on Fidel because they were anti-Castro Cubans supposed to be coming, and so they didn't know what they're gonna do because they weren't gonna pay the cost. And he said, this guy said, well, maybe I could contact Malcolm X and see who's at that time a minister of Nation of Islam, Temple number 7 in Harlem, and maybe we could stay. You know, he could find some place for us to stay. And he said, Fidel said, you know Malcolm X? So Fidel already knew who Malcolm was, you know, and so they made that contact, and Malcolm hooked him up. And of course, the people of Harlem blessed them. You know, they came and really turned out. So it really shouldn't surprise us that at least around this question of international solidarity, Malcolm and Rob were on the same page, just like, you know, John Henry Clark, just like, you know, Amir, you know, for them, there was no contradiction between nationalism and internationalism, you know, and particularly the Pan-Africanism part of internationalism, you know, but that's how they were seeing it at that particular time. And so they're aligned. I noticed that in Mabel's part of this publication, she mentions Malcolm. Anytime they went to New York, that Malcolm would take them out to dinner at the NOI restaurant, and she said that
ahead of me, but right on, go ahead, keep going.
They were eating all the time, and they were discussing not what was happening in Monroe, North Carolina. They would discuss what was happening in the South, but also what's happening in the world. So these are two men who weren't provincial. Is that the word? they, you know, they weren't just local. In fact, Rob, even before he's at that stage, one of his heroes when he's in college, because he goes to a historically Black college, West Virginia State, and one of his heroes he mentions is Paul Robeson. So he's, you know, when Paul Robeson again, dedicated to
straight out of Jersey, by the way, I got to say that.
I forgot that, yeah, because he played the Rutgers, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. All-American football player, but he, you know, Paul Robeson very much supporting our struggle against fascism, particularly in the South. And a lot of people don't know he helped finance the writings of Harry Haywood talking about the Black people were a nation in the South with right to self-determination, but very much a Pan-Africanist, very much support of socialism around the world and workers' rights around the workers. I won't just say rights, workers' power and organization around, very, very much in support of labor struggle. So Rob is reading and consuming all of that. And that's where he's coming from. Let me stop before I go too far. Keep on going.
No, here where I wanted you to, you know, because we're heavy lifting up Rob, right? But this is Robert and Mabel.
Mabel, right?
Mabel is his principal comrade and his spouse.
I
right?
said,
legendary picture of them together. You know, he's showing how to pop that pistol, right?
Well, it's two. There's one with him showing how. There's one with both of them.
I ain't seen that. That should have been a flyer.
I'll send it to you.
Yes. But the thing but you know, we need to also know who Mabel is, who Mabel was, right?
Mabel is a young
story, and a lot of the interactions with Malcolm that you talk about is on Mabel's side of the narrative, right?
Right,
so
right.
Let's talk about the great Mabel Williams.
No doubt. Which is one of the reasons we had to have Mabel's narrative in there, but more about that later. Mabel Williams meets Rob. He's not the activist yet. She meets this brother who's a little bit older than her. She meets him actually while she's in high school. She's playing basketball, and they meet through common friends. And again, he's not at that point an activist. He's a brother, been in the Army, going to college, just trying to get employment. He has aspirations to be a writer, but you know, blocked at every turn. She meets him. There's a natural attraction. They date, and he marries her when he's still in high school. When she's still in high school, and it's funny. She was talking about he wasn't with his wife still be playing basketball, high school basketball, so they struggled around that. But Mabel, one of the things I like, you could see in both memoirs their growth and development. But Mabel grows not only in her interaction with Rob, but then she works at this hospital in North Carolina, and she describes the conditions of that hospital that's serving our people and how the conditions are basically genocidal for our people in terms of how to, not only how people are treated by doctors, but just the general treatment of the hospital. One of the things my co-editor, Gloria Neb House, says, her analysis of the book as we were putting it together, is at each point, both of them had to choose to be together. More Mabel than Rob, because think of it from this point. And there's a point in the life where there's a setup on, and Rob has to leave Monroe, North Carolina, goes to Canada, goes to Cuba, eventually goes to China. She probably could have said, "Oh, hell no, I ain't doing that. I'm not doing that." But she grows into a person who's committed to in the struggle. So, for instance, Mabel and Rob, particularly after people, because Rob is in the NAACP, he's the leader of the Monroe, North Carolina chapter. And there's a period of time because he makes a statement after there was a pattern of violence against Black women in Monroe, and them taking the women to court, and then the white perpetrators are not really no real justice. It's just like a slap on the wrist, let them go. Rob makes a statement: we got to meet violence with violence and lynching with lynching. So after he makes that statement, the national NAACP, Roy Wilkins, and others strip him from his position and try to punish him publicly. But he gets a great street cred in our community across the country. So Mabel and another sister, Ethel Zalia Johnson, along with Rob, they create a newsletter called The Crusader, which is first mimeograph, but then the quality of the paper, of the newsletter, I should say, is more developed over time as they get their skills and resources together. But that team put the newsletter out, which becomes very important in terms of fundraising, in terms of political education, and you develop the Crusader Network, which again in New York includes people like John Henry Clark, John Oliver Killings, Malcolm, Queen Mother Moore. In Detroit includes people like Grace Lee Boggs and James Boggs. So around the country, and you got young activists who were in SNCC and then who will later be in the Revolutionary Action Movement or part of that newsletter that they developed. When they're in exile in Cuba, Rob and Mabel as a team, well, I mention one other thing. Now I'll come back to that. They produce a radio show, which is supporting Cuban workers, Radio Free Dixie.
Radio Free Dixie, yes, sir.
What I should mention, you can see in Mabel's memoir, is she talks about how it wasn't just the brothers who were involved in armed self-defense, how women were involved in armed self-defense. Not only that, but there's an occasion where Rob is being pursued by the local police after a protest, and she has to come out and back him off with her rifle. So again, wasn't just a masculine thing. Men and women were involved in the protection of our community, and Mabel in particular. So when you see the picture, photo that's mentioned by Baba Zaid, it's not just a photo app. They were actually training. They were trained to utilize their weapons against, again, forces who are trying to bring us harm.
Yeah, that's loaded stuff, and that's important to appreciate. You know, when we would see the emergence of other formations afterwards, and of course, everybody lifts up the party for obvious reasons because of the attention that the party got. You know, party's military training was gender neutral.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that you mentioned Blood earlier, right? One of the things that Blood used to say, you know, on the issue of gender oppression and sexism in those ranks, he said once them sisters got trained on them weapons, you know, we had to, you know, let some of that our sexist stuff had to go.
Yeah, I hear you.
The same,
That's true of this household.
man, that's the A, you know. You know and that's important to realize too, because it's one of the things that you know, as we move forward, that is one of the often one of our internal elephants in the room that we very rarely critique as we should. So it was it's really powerful to see the memoir of both of them being lifted up together. We should also highlight the fact that, you know, the propagandists that they became also dovetails with the fact that Malcolm develops, Muhammad speaks.
Right.
They both are propaganda shotgunners.
Right.
And
They know the message is important.
You know, Malcolm really pushed out the Crusaders. So that's just a real important lift. Now let's come back to our original question at the top that we had at the top of the conversation, right? Where are some of the spaces? You know, let's say we got some young heads looking at this, or who are going to look at this, right? Who are getting those BAs and MAs and PhDs. I always got the wrong letter back. I never could get one of them things, right? If you had to say to them, where are some of the spaces in our armed defense tradition that they may want to look at, consider doing real research on? And what are some of the other gems of that research that's been done already that we need to pay more attention to that's being overlooked? You muted yourself, Akinyele.
Lord.
There you go. You're back.
Okay. There's a sister who I've collaborated before on Black Power Encyclopedia, Jasmine Young, and she's actually coming out with a book. I think it's about a year away, on women in armed self-defense. But where's the study on what Baba Herman and them were doing in Jamaica, Queens? And another piece is, and I just thought of another piece, but Baba Asa Hilliard, who's one of my elders as well. I remember last time I heard him speak, he said that, you know, and Zaid, you can remember when you and I were younger, it wasn't just books, but we had pamphlets.
Yeah.
I remember Newark, Miriam would be putting out pamphlets, and he was saying we need to get out things that are quicker reads and things that I
I'm asking the name for one of them pamphlets. Yep.
Yeah. So we don't need, say, like, excuse me, we do need the books, but it'd be great to have, even if somebody can't do a whole 200-page book on Jamaica Rifle and Pistol Association, put out a pamphlet on it.
Yeah.
We need to have that documented and circulated, and of course it could go online too. So another good book that talks about our resistance going back to our period of enslavement is We Refuse. And I can't remember the sister's name who wrote that particular book, We Refuse. And she looks at different periods of our time and different forms of resistance, and armed resistance, and particularly armed resistance coming from sisters. On the cover of the book, you had this beautiful picture of a Black woman with a rifle and wearing the locks.
Kelly Carter Jackson.
Yes, Kelly Carter Jackson. So that's another one I would recommend. Of course, Charlie Cobb's that nonviolent stuff will get you killed, which is a quote from one of the people we focus on, and we will shoot back. Hartman Turnbull, who successfully defended his family from night riders when they attacked his family in Shula, Mississippi in 1963. And they tried to they threw a firebomb in his house and he came out blasting. So I think those are some off the top of my head I would recommend right now. But again, we have several stories. So for instance, one thing I would like to follow up on, but maybe somebody else can, is Dr. Mutulu Shakur. And I'm not even sure his name was that yet. It might have been Jarrell Williams at the time. He worked for the United Church of Christ. And they hired him to go into Wilmington, North Carolina. In the Wilmington 10, Ben Chavis and those folks were fighting against a white supremacist organization that were attacking Black youth at that time who were desegregating at school. And so Baba Chewy Ferguson, Ibidun Sundiata, who's now an ancestor of Dr. Mutulu Shakur, and others went into Wilmington to help provide protection. One of my colleagues and mentor, Dr. Charles E. Jones, who helped start our department at Georgia State University, he was one of those youth during that time. But he never knew it was Mutulu and them coming to help them. Another place.
I haven't heard that. That's interesting. That's a chapter in Mutulu's life that I hadn't heard.
Yeah, and I wrote a political biography of Mutulu and his mention. He had told me about it for years, but it was Chewy who gave me more information on it. And then Chewy and Ibidun went under Mutulu's direction, also went to Cairo, Illinois, where at that time there was a Black United Front organized. And again, it was a white supremacist organization that was attacking the Black community under leadership of Reverend Charles Cohen.
Cohen, yeah.
Coen, for those who want to get more. There's a book on this, but again, the role that Dr. Shakur and others played on, I remember Mutulu mentioning they had to virtually shoot their way into Cairo, Illinois. So, and then, again, I mentioned, and there's more could be done on it, but in chapter 8, We Will Shoot Back, there was a group, United League of Mississippi, who were doing boycotts in the state of Mississippi to challenge the Ku Klux Klan. So that's a chapter there, but it could be expanded. That could be a whole book. Alfred Skip Robinson was a spokesperson there, and then they had another leader in Chickasaw County, Mississippi. Lord have mercy. Okolona, who successfully, him and his family were ambushed by some Klansmen and made some Klansmen raise up. So there's these history battles. Not to mention, this is what Blood wanted, like his story, but then the whole history of the Black Liberation Army.
Yes.
I wrote a shorter piece on it, but it could be expanded. And of course, there's a dissertation by Brother Guy Eady. He's a professor at Grambling now. I forgot his last name. And he's the son of Panthers. His people were associated with Geronimo Gijago. So, there's so much information about this aspect. In academia now, we're saying one area of study is Black radical tradition, but this is one area of Black radical tradition, even to the first Africans, captive Africans that were on this place, 1526, first in South Carolina, but then in Georgia.
Sapelo Square.
Sapelo Sound. They defeated the Spanish and ran their ass off. So, again, that's that tradition. And I think it impacts how we see ourselves. One of the motivations for writing We Will Shoot Back. I mean, for getting it done, it was already in my head. But I remember at Georgia State, there was some years ago where we had a conversation with students of African descent from the Caribbean, from the continent, and from the United States. And I had a Jamaican sister say, because there was some conflict, and Jamaican sister said, well, the difference between us and so-called African Americans is our ancestors fought back. And we had Maroons, we had this, that, and the other. That didn't bother me as much as a lot of the students from here could not respond to that. I said, damn, I'm doing a terrible job if they can't answer that question. We had over 250
slave uprisings.
Yeah, we have over 50 documented, what do you call them, maroon communities, so-called maroons. We call them Colombos. You know about our Colombo school here.
Colombo, yes, sir. Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
yeah. So, because maroon to me is it means a runaway animal. It's based on the word coming being a runaway animal. What do you call it?
That came up. Yes, let me just put a pin in that for a minute because it came up yesterday. Yesterday we did a book talk around Maroon Schultz.
Russell Schultz. Yes, I saw that. I saw that. I saw it online. I thought it was.
His kids were talking about they were in DC at Haile Jeremiah's bookstore doing a conversation, and a sister from she was from one of the Caribbean islands. I can't remember where she was from, right? But actually took issue with the name, leaning on that dimension of its original baggage. And we had been holding on to maroon for what it means for us in resistance for so long. I never even paid it any mind.
Yeah, cimarrones, the Spanish word, meaning like a runaway animal. And I understand, I mean, some things we could flip some things, but I just in terms of trying to be self-determined in Kujichagulia, the school, my family founded Freedom School, Quilombo Academic and Cultural Institute. And it's the word we push out more. Of course, that was the name. It's originally a Bantu word. And it's for like a warrior society, because after the Ma'afa began to happen, some of our people were dispersed and they came back and formed these warrior groups to fight the slavers and fight against some of our people who were collaborating with them. Yeah. And that's one of the ethnic groups of the Jaga, of the Quilombos were called the Jaga people. So that's where Geronimo gets Jijaga.
Yes.
These are people West Central Africa and Angola. So just in terms of trying to introduce that, and of course in Brazil, since there were so many Africans that came from that part of the world to Brazil, West Central Africa, they call them communities Quilombos. Another name in Spanish places you'll find it in Mexico as well as in Colombia is the Palenques. Yes. So that we got a variety. There are hundreds of these communities across the Americas, and again, our brothers and sisters in a lot of American Spanish-speaking countries use the term cimarron. So they kind of tie on to that tradition of resistance and fighting back, and we got it true. We got that tradition too.
Absolutely.
We got it. So when you look at a Mutulu Shakur, that's what he is. Geronimo, that's what he is. A Nahanda.
From them moving all the way back to our Harriet. The little sister was sitting in the conversation she had on the Harriet Tubman shirt. I said, Harriet was Queen Mother Maroon, right? And she said, now it makes sense. I said, yes. And Quiet as Kept is one of the things that Malcolm was also trying to get us to with the organizing that he called for, is that bridging that gap of organizing, between those of us who speak English, those of us who speak Spanish.
That's what he called an Afro-American. He wasn't talking about
any person of African descent in the Western Hemisphere is an Afro-American, right? And of course, that got co-opted like crazy, and folks still ain't got a clue about how to bring all that together the way he was trying to bring that together. This hour went fast, and it's all right. It's all right.
You see what happened? You give me the mic.
Yeah, that's all right. That's what it's for. Supposed to be a hot mic. As we wind this,
I love coming on here.
Huh?
I'm saying I love coming on your show, and I love viewing it when I'm not on here.
Oh man, yeah, we got and for those of you who are watching this, share it out, like and
No doubt.
subscribe to our page. I should make an apology for us as we wind up. We went through we have a web page that is frozen and outdated that we have to redo. So in Facebook land, we're vulnerable to their overseers,
Right.
knocking us offline. And we got knocked offline for a long time. I got
I
knocked
remember.
off twice,
I
and the
remember.
page got knocked off in April. We were lifting up our solidarity with Burkina Faso and our
Oh
young
yeah.
President brother Ibrahim Traore. We got knocked off. So this is the first live stream that's once again is going to both our YouTube page and our Facebook page, but our YouTube doesn't have the same overseers as Instagram and Facebook. So we're really trying to build up our support here through this platform. So for those of you on YouTube, share it out, like, subscribe, share it out. We do not do this a lot in this particular space. Revolutionary Fourth Sundays is on the fourth Sunday every month. We in Akinyele, I'm trying to build out a board for the organization too, and you need to be a part of that because we will want to look at going into the next year, really trying
Okay.
to be strategic about this space as an ongoing political education space to bring up these young heads into this because we're all getting older and we have an obligation to pass on as much as we can pass on. So I wanted to make that caveat and apology. Yeah,
Oh,
that's
I'd be honored to though, because I've always, like I said, because of your continued work, but the elders who founded this,
oh man,
you
shoulders we
know,
stand on. Shoot.
yeah, man.
We stand on some serious shoulders, and so then and that comes back to the point that I made originally about the fact that you are an organic scholar. You're not a commercial scholar. You're not looking to get on TV. You're not watering stuff down. You're not being acceptable. You're organically involved in our struggle as some of, and there's so many that are not, that are getting this attention, and we got to clean up a lot of their mess sometimes. In their co-optation of struggle, and they're watering down our stuff and delegitimizing, the radical dimensions that we uphold. So
No.
it's important to come back to that and to make sure that we have these kind of spaces to do that. So if there any final takeaways you want us to have, let us know. Then what's happening, what you got on deck in terms of moving the book and other work with of course we all have ties to the Malcolm X grassroots movement, right? And all those places and spaces and cities that it's in. Anything you want to share with us?
Well, next Friday, Neb and I will be talking about the book and then the international dimensions of Rob and Mabel. And actually, the Mabel's memoir is titled "We Want to See Everyone Free." And so we'll be on next Friday, this coming Friday, 7 p.m. So if you go to Malcolm X Grassroots Movement's website, and we constantly trying to, what was John charged us with, to get the book out there and encourage other people to take the story and develop it in different ways. One of my hopes is I could develop a juvenile level book around Robert and Mabel Williams' legacy. But the next bigger project is I've edited some of Chokwe Lumumba's speeches and writings. So I want to get that out there soon within the next year.
Yeah, that's personal to both of us for real.
Yeah. So that's what we want to do. And just continue to build this movement.
Y'all gotta hear. I love the pick on that flyer for next week. That's Robert and Mabel.
That's September 28th.
Oh, September. Yeah,
I just get it out there early.
Yes. I should have used that pick. I ain't see that one.
I'll send you photos. I'll send you the photos.
Yeah, good stuff.
Specific about which one you wanted.
Yeah, I've got an idea for a book that I'm trying to figure out and trying to get myself resituated. I'm going through an economic malaise, as some of us are navigating, jobs being hatcheted and whatnot.
Yeah.
So I'm a casualty of that, so we're trying to make some adjustments. But I've got an idea that I really want to develop. If I get on track, y'all going to hear from me, to make sure that I'm getting it right. But it's been an honor to have you. In terms of our political prisoners spotlight
Yes,
on
sir.
our Malcolm X Commemoration Committee Facebook page, it is active, it is functional. Big old flyer, right? Urgent call, right? We have a call in campaign to the Pennsylvania Department of Corrections to demand that Mumia get this medical care on his eyesight immediately. You know, Matulu went through something similar with the
No doubt. No doubt.
diabetes and what diabetes does to your vision,
Right.
right?
We
But
actually had a stroke while he was in the prison, Victorville, California.
that's right.
There's a
That's
whole
right.
story. I won't belabor that, right? And we'll tell that story another day. What the conditions that created the stroke, but he had a stroke and that affected his vision.
Absolutely. And then, you know, and of course, that's one of the dimensions of our elder freedom fighters in captivity. There's no prison is no place to get sick because they're not going to give you the proper treatment. We've got Imam Jamila El Amin, who's
Mm-hmm.
terminally ill.
Right, right.
And under no circumstances should we allow uh, the state to take that elder from us in captivity under no circumstances. So you will
Mm-hmm.
see on our page also, we're developing a one pager, right? A letter writing campaign driven to those freedom fighters, right? And several others. Some of them names, some I'm not going to name for tactical reasons, right? As we, wind down Black August, because the point of action politically in Black August is the support for our political prisoners.
Yes, sir.
Any party and a dance without that money going to our struggling to our freedom fighters. There ain't none of that, right? It is fast, study, train, and fight. But the
Mm-hmm.
political action, the point of support, the points of action is support for our political prisoners. So we want everybody to remember that. Pam Africa was on another call at the same time. And of course, a lot of us are tired of because it is Black August. So
No
we couldn't
doubt.
get anybody else to really jump on that. There is going to be a documentary developed for Imam Jamil by his son and the team that his son has got going on. Look forward to that when we as we move forward and stepping it up for him. I will be doing some work to try and build out some additional clergy support for him in this area because his particular campaign is a clergy led campaign. The Free Imam Jamil uh, campaign is led by imams. Folks who are in that those insular dimensions of the Muslim community, and we got a whole spate of Muslims ain't jumped on that yet, but we got to get straight on that, right, in the Newark and the New York area. So we're looking forward to that. We will probably, on matters of faith, I'm trying to do a conversation with Baba James Small and Imam Talib Abdul Rashid on the faith of Malcolm X, right?
Mm-hmm.
Both important transitional figures. Baba James for Muslim Mosque Incorporated, and Imam Jamil, Mosque of Islamic Brotherhood, which succeeded Muslim Mosque Incorporated. They were both pivotal figures in that. And Imam Talib opposed, the jihadists of the revolutionary dimensions of Islam the way Malcolm wanted to embrace. Malcolm embraced that, and also Baba James is the bridge to us from Islam to our own traditions in Africa, Ifa, and so forth. I'm doing libations, but I'm also a Muslim. We put all weapons on the damn table. We fight the devil. We fight him with everything. Right? So look forward to that. We also want to do Jihad, Abdul Muhammad, and Jaleel on that same level. How did their embrace of the spirituality that Malcolm introduced us? How did that get so many of them through their prison experience, and how does continuing to anchor their work? So those are some of the places that we want to go for the International Day to eliminate violence against women in November. We want to deal with the whole question of gender violence and sexism in our community, and how that has been a serious problem in our movement. So there are a lot of places, a lot of touch points we want to do moving forward. Because we want this year to be a full, thoughtful, year that is the centennial of Malcolm X. So we appreciate everybody coming through. Behind the scenes, and my dear young teacher and educator, Rafisa Shahabuddin, who's I'm gonna call it the StreamYard 1-2s. And I look forward to her leadership and the leadership from her crew, from her generation coming forward, and all of our continued support. Now, continue to follow us on our 2 pages, like, share, subscribe, all of that. But more than that, if you're not organized, get organized. Our next venture locally will be a book signing for "Nobody Can Give You Freedom." Kahindi Andrews, a young radical scholar from across the big pond, who's in England, who captures how Malcolm lit up, the Black and Asian communities of England when in those representations he made way back then, and those are their radical roots. Malcolm's radical roots are not confined to the confines of the United States. They're not confined to Detroit and Harlem, right? Malcolm was a global figure. He was a giant, and we need to appreciate the giant dimensions of his legacy and dare to be that big and that bad and that bold, standing on his shoulders. All right. So thank you, everybody. Thank you, Baba Akinyele. Everybody put that book. All those 3 books that we mentioned today. We Will Shoot Back. Negroes with Guns. That's Robert's first book. The Memoirs of Robert and Mabel Williams. Fresh off the press. Get them now, make them a part of your PE. And until then, we'll see you in the whirlwind. Thank you for listening and for keeping time with us.
Free the land, Black August.
By any means necessary.
Say.
That's good.
Yeah, it didn't go off yet. Let me see if I can end this.